I will now take the sediment for this meeting of the East Kilbride Area Committee, held on the 10th of December 2024. The following members are present: Councillors John Anderson, Arch Buchanan, Matthew Buchanan, Jerry Convery. Margaret Krupa is not present. Councillors Monique Ekway, Joe Fagan and Grant Ferguson are all present. Councillor Gladys Ferguson-Miller is present. Councillor Elise Frame is present. Councillor Jerry Gray is not present. Councillor Susan Kerr is not present. Councillor Hugh MacDonald is not present. Councillor Elaine McDougall is not present. We have apologies from Councillor Kirsten Robb. Councillors Graham Scott and David Watson are present, and we have apologies from Councillor Kirsty Williams. Thank you, and I'll pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Thanks, Stuart. A declaration of interest. Have any declaration of interest? Joe.
Thanks, Chair. It's just under this item, obviously item 5 on the twinning relationship between East Kilbride and Balrop references a delegation that we are receiving in East Kilbride later this year, but also a delegation from South Lanarkshire that will be attending Balrop. So I've taken some advice in that, because myself, I'm one of the councillors, I'm not the only councillor, but I'm one of the councillors mentioned in the face of that report. I've just taken some advice on whether it would be appropriate to declare an interest, and I think at this point it would seem best to make a short transparency statement to draw attention to that, but just to make clear that we're representing the council in an official capacity, and there'd be no cost to the council in the attendance of the councillors mentioned on that report, because we'd be paying for our own flights, etc. So it's just to make a short transparency statement on that point. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Similar to Joe, I just make that similar transparency statement. Okay, thank you.
John.
Thanks, Chair. Agenda item number 4, which is only for noting routes towards south presentation. There will not be taking any decisions on this. I sit on the board of routes towards south, so although I sit on that, I don't think there's any need for me to leave the meeting, as it's not an item for decision. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, just get one then.
Your own declaration.
Sorry?
Your own declaration.
I did that. Yeah.
Item 6. Dementia.
All right, okay. So what do you want me to do?
You declare.
All right, okay. I'll declare interest in the community grants, the East Kilbride Dementia Carers Group. I'm the chair. Okay, thank you. Okay, right. Okay, minutes of previous meetings. I'll move the minutes a correct record and ask for a seconder. Don't all rush at once. Okay, thanks. I'll ask members if they agree to approve the minutes as a correct record. Great, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to items for noting. Education Scotland, Gilmanston Primary School, Linda Gardner, who's the lead officer, and Louise Croshaw. Right, okay, thanks for that. So, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, councillors. My name is Linda Gardner and I'm the Quality Link Officer for Gilmerston Primary. I'm pleased to be here today with the head teacher, Mrs Louise Croshaw, to advise members of the inspection outcome. During the week beginning 16th of September 2024, Education Scotland undertook a short model inspection on the quality of education provision within Gilmerton Primary School. The inspection report was published on the 5th of November 2024. The short model inspection focuses on 2 quality indicators from How Good Is Our School. The school received gradings for each of these indicators, as well as a more detailed written report of findings, which highlights particular strengths and areas for continued improvement. The outcome for Gilmerton was positive. Quality indicator 2.3, Learning, Teaching and Assessment, was evaluated as good, and quality indicator 3.2, Raising Attainment and Achievement, was good as well. In terms of the demographics of Gilmerton Primary, it's situated in Drumclog in the Straven area of South Lanarkshire, serving the rural district of Upper Avondale. All children live out with SIMD 1 and 2. Currently, the school has 2 multi-composite classes, primary 1 to 4 and primary 5 to 7. These serve a total roll of 40 children in the school. Louise Crawshaw, the current head teacher, took up post in August 2022. I'm going to hand over to Louise, who will expand on the expansion grades and talk about some of the particular highlights from the report and consider the areas for continued improvement. Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you to the Chair and to Linda for her introduction. Having been appointed in August 2022 in my first substantive post as a head teacher of Gilmerton and Sandford Primaries, I'm proud to be here with you all today to share and celebrate the progress and future projection for improvement of Gilmerton Primary following the recent evaluations made by His Majesty's Inspectorate for Education. One of the first development activities I was invited to as a newly appointed head teacher was the, some say, ominous session run by the Quality Improvement Service on preparation for inspection. Knowing from the first week in post that Gilmerton was on the list certainly compounded the enormity of accountability that comes with the role of head teacher, particularly one fresh out the wrapper. The session contents were well considered, expertly delivered, and comprised every possible tip and piece of advice from some of our most experienced educator leaders across South Lanarkshire. Having never been part of the inspection process in any of the schools I taught in since beginning my teaching career in 2006, some might have advised that beginning preparations for inspection immediately would have been prudent. However, having taken up post in a new learning community, juggling my diary across 2 schools and getting to know 2 distinctly different school communities, I prioritised the development of culture, well-being, the relationships within and across the schools, reinvigorating high expectations of all learners and widening opportunities for achievement to mitigate against the poverty of aspiration and access as a rural school community. In 2023, we engaged with all stakeholders to refresh our school values, to reflect who we are at Gilmerton Primary when at our natural best, and are proud to have had these recognised as a strength during the inspection process, and in particular the ways in which our young people demonstrated our values. At Gilmerton, we are brave in learning, we champion everyone making progress, we ensure that you matter and everyone matters, and we prioritise well-being for learning. We rely on these values to guide every aspect of decision-making and school improvement planning, and are particularly proud to have our strengths in partnership working with and for our families, our professional partnerships within our learning community, and our positive culture and ethos also recognised in the published survey responses. Knowing that the full inspection findings have been made available to you, I wanted to take this opportunity to share some reflections from the people who matter most in all our schools, our children and young people. So the summary of inspection findings highlights a key strength at Gilmerton as being the enthusiastic engagement of children in their learning. When asked what made them enthusiastic, a word that was repeated by the Chief Inspector in every meeting, pupils shared that the work we do is so Goldilocks. It's just right. We're all given the work that's right for us. When asked for their thoughts about our expectations and values, our mid-stage learners felt that without our expectations of kind to self, kind to others, and kind to the environments we share, there would be chaos. Our school values help us become good people in the world. The report considers that my facilitation of a strong team approach improves learning opportunities for children and families, with positive and caring relationships being prioritised to support wellbeing and secure engagement in learning. Our young people shared that there are so many opportunities for us now that everyone can be successful in something. We get to take part in the learning that's right for us, so we know we'll be successful. Lots of things are organised for us between two schools and other schools, like sports and choir and transition visits. These help us make extra friendships. We know that the adults in school share important information about us all and know how to look after each of us. As well as opportunities for our young people to take their place within the wider community and represent Gilmerton Primary, our pupils are crucially making good progress in literacy and numeracy, and data is used effectively to support learning for individual children. Pupils shared that we know that assessments help us know that we're making progress. There's lots of inspiration around the school and growth mindset going on here. Two key areas for improvement were identified during the inspection process. Firstly, that the shared responsibility for using assessment, data and tracking of children's progress over time should continue to be directed and supported by the head teacher. Improvement in this area will be made through systematically strengthening professional knowledge of how effective learning happens, quality feedback to and with learners, using national standardised assessments and the South Lanarkshire Council BGE toolkit for attainment data snapshots and overtime. Triannual professional dialogue between teachers and the head teacher will continue to embed in-house processes for tracking attainment and achievement over time and to ensure accuracy for the uplift of achievement data. Led by our newly established Principal Teacher Leadership Group, teachers from across the 4 small schools in Straven will also continue to engage in moderation activity as part of a wider network of knowledge and support to ensure robust and accurate professional judgment. Our learners think that more assessments would be okay. We'd like to see more about what our progress looks like. And they ask, how can you show us that? And can teachers be clearer about what we need to do to improve? In conjunction with my team of Young Leaders for Learning and teachers, I will now audit the current application and effectiveness of feedback and plan for how best to address this within our current plans to improve literacy and in future improvement planning cycles. The second area for improvement considers that teachers should continue to identify the needs of children who experience barriers to learning and should create and implement plans to ensure all children improve in their learning further. The role of ASN coordinator is becoming all-consuming as our statistics and our profile of children with additional support needs has risen in line with national and SLC figures to around 32%. But these responsibilities must be more evenly shared between all teachers as well as those in promoted posts. It is already a key priority in our improvement planning that relevant knowledge and capacity building experiences are made available to teachers so that quality interventions can be secured and delivered for children and young people with an additional support need. That each of us is able to act to make a difference with the right knowledge, tools and networks available to us. Our young people feel that as a school we already do much of this very well and make accommodations for people who learn differently, who are making progress at a different pace. Through discussion, our primary 5 to 7 learners collectively identified that they want to know more about neurodiversity and the science of the brain. They feel that this will help them be more supportive and understanding of each other and help everyone belong to Gilmerton, but also help them understand people they come across in their futures. Within the existing complexities of multi-composite teaching, which we already do so well at Gilmerton, we must continue to identify what works well to support individuals and then universalise these good practice approaches across our classes and make greater collegiate use of the staged intervention processes already in place. While I would never confess to having perhaps at times wished for a full model inspection, as a staff team and personally as a head teacher, we are pleased that our engagement with the inspection process had validated the improvement work undertaken in the last 2 years and that very good evaluations across all indicators are within our reach as we continue on our current trajectory. We're grateful to His Majesty Inspectorate of Education for the acknowledgements of our strengths, the encouragement for our continued growth and the tangible feedback for improvement at Gilmerton Primary School. My thanks also to the CQIS team, in particular Anne Jessimer, Linda Gardner, Martina Hendry and my colleagues from across the Straven learning community and beyond for their support. Thank you, Chair.
Elise.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I just want to congratulate you all on the great report for Gilmerton Primary. I've had a great privilege of attending several parent council meetings, and I think it's very positive the way that the parent council get involved to help everybody in the school, and along with the head teacher, they've got a great relationship. And especially with this wee rural school, there's challenges there, but they meet the challenges and they try and do their best to always involve the children. So I think a great congratulations go out to Gilmerton Primary. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. And I add my congratulations to the report as well in surviving it. So good. I'm interested in the point 4.3, and you elaborated on it a wee bit. The second bullet point, to identify the needs of children who experience barriers to learning. And I think you went on to talk about ASM. And interestingly, I was my way down here this afternoon, I was listening to a discussion on Radio Scotland about schools and the problems with schools with taking with the current staffing levels, supporting the increase in numbers of individuals and children with ASN. And I think the consensus was you've got the roughly across schools, and we've got a responsibility here as councillors as well. There was a flattening of teachers' level, but there's an increase in support needed through ASN needs within schools. And just maybe looking for your comment on that and how a wee bit, elaborate a wee bit more on how you can address that locally, or is it a resource issue, or is it something you can do with changing practices within the school? Thanks.
Sorry, can you just press the button again?
Sorry, thanks for that. There are only 40 pupils in Gilmerton, as I said in my opening paragraph, but within that there's quite about 32% of children who vary in their additional support needs. Some are on the neurological pathway, some are display literacy or numeracy difficulties. So it's really Louise and our teachers who would identify with the parents as well what exactly these children need and their support for their learning, and then do their very best to meet that need. And it can be quite difficult depending on the experience of the teacher or the support staff members, which indeed help out. So there's lots of training required sometimes, and lots of extra research and reading, and then actually matching something that can really support that child do their very best in school is Louise's job as head teacher to try to do that. So I'll pass on to Louise, and she'll maybe kind of quantify some of that for you, councillor. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I hesitate to speak on behalf of the council and just refer to what happens at local within my own context. Well, it gets written down. So, yes, I think it's fair to say that there is a social narrative emerging about the complexities in schools, certainly, and it is to be celebrated that this is a conversation that's coming to the fore, because you're right, we can have the moral imperative to meet the needs of every learner that comes through our doors. And what I would like to clarify, which I think was discussed with the inspection team, was that, as Linda referenced, we pull a demographic of learners who are not within SIMD 1 and 2. And learners within SIMD 1 and 2, quite rightly, get the lion's share of resources and input and support. That doesn't mean to say there aren't additional barriers faced by our children in SIMD 3 and above because of a huge variety of complex situations. So we can't look at traditional equity measures when identifying barriers to learning. What we look at is the holistic picture of every family that comes through our door, which is our privilege because we have so few families. So we look at additional barriers such as, is there a family with a child under 2 years old, for example? Is there a primary care or illness within the family? Is there, you know, there's a rurality and with that a vulnerability for some of our families being so isolated. What is their network of support like? Are there, is there a history of literacy difficulties and challenges within a family? So we get up and close and personal, and understanding the complete context of a family really helps us identify the barriers for each individual child. And part of my journey so far over the last 2 years is to widen the lens for my teaching staff, to be able to view what the actual barriers to learning are and put in place things that are not just traditional interventions for learning routes and closing attainment gaps. But for example, do you have a primary 6 child who can't ride a bike yet? Can we facilitate her learning to ride a bike? Yes, absolutely we can. Has that made a world of difference to her and helped her maths? Of course it has, because she has the self-esteem to try something new and to overcome that barrier. So that's just one example from the top of my head that I can think of where a much more holistic approach needs to be taken, and it always comes back to having an impact on learning. And to address your point about resource, we would all love to have more hands in school. Of course we have. If you find the money, I'll have more people. I think that it is admirable, the job that our colleagues do in trying to decide which support staff go where. And every year we essentially bid for how much support we need, depending on the profile of needs of our children. And we can argue how morally correct that is or otherwise, and how one person's judgment might compare favourably or not to another's. But we deal with the children who are in front of us, and we make the resources fit, and we are as creative as we possibly can be. But please don't take anything else away from us.
John.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of points. I'm looking at some of the questions, and one of the ones is I feel that my work in school is hard enough, and only 20.83% thought that was all the time. Changed days when I was at school. I always thought everything was hard, and matter of fact, it was too hard. But I just wonder, could 25% actually think it's not very often that their work is hard enough? So, I mean, to get the best out of kids, obviously, we've got to make it as hard as possible. The other question I thought was a wee bit worrying was, my school deals well with any bullying, and only 50% agree. That's quite worrying. I don't know if you have a lot of instances of bullying, or whether it's just the odd sort of one or two that's maybe disgruntled about it. And I just wonder what you could do to improve on that. Another improvement I thought was that overall inspection report was good for the 2 categories. Now, my recollection is there's 6 lists. I mean, it's excellent, very good, good. Another 3, you don't really want to be in that bottom 3. But how do you get from good to very good, which quite a lot of the schools have achieved in the past? Thanks, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, is it Linda, do you want to go? Sorry.
Just initially. Thanks, Councillor Anderson. The good spectrum in the report is very wide, and at times, sometimes schools are cuspy, can I use that expression, whereas they could be almost elements of very good. But if you read the actual definition of what good means, good is indeed good with more strengths than things that are needing developed. So it's really very good, and what the inspection team would then do is then give pointers to the school team as to how to make those improvements. So there were discussions with the inspection team, with myself as lead officer and Louise, in showing the aspects of tipping into very good, but they just, because Louise has only been there for such a short time, they did see and commented on her leadership, but it was almost just not enough. But they were very confident in that, the trajectory that the school is going on. So I hope that's okay, John. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Anderson. I'll let Louise speak for the other parts. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. I think the 25% of children not thinking that their work is hard enough is an ideal position to be in. And I think that's exactly what we do next, is that we make sure there are almost always those elements of additional challenge, and that we continue to embed this ethos that is new to the children, where they have choice, they have empowerment, they have agency over their learning. They're maybe presented with a list of tasks, and they have autonomy over the order in which they complete those, or there are extension challenges provided. But I think absolutely we don't want any of our young people coasting. That's not what we're there for. So I absolutely take your point on board. The 50% of the children considering that school deals well with bullying is really fascinating, and the managing inspector and I had a very in-depth conversation about this, because she asked the same question. I would say that in the time I've been there, the school now deals with bullying more consistently, that the approaches are more consistent and there are more avenues to report bullying, and that pupils and parents feel that the outcomes are more favourable and they're dealt with, the incidents are dealt with more seriously. They are logged now within the CMIS Bullying and Inequalities module that's available to all schools and that we're encouraged to use, and that was brought online maybe within the last year, sort of August 2023. What I would add as a highly contextualised note is my own reflections can lead me to believe, from what I know of the children and the profile in my school, there is a certain cohort of children with neurodiversity who come up against incidents of, yes, you know, founded bullying, perhaps name calling and such. The incidents are not timely. They're not a significant number of bullying incidents, but the incidents that have come up, so say for example we were looking at 6 incidents and 3 of those involve children with neurodivergence. There is a culture that exists within my school that I'm working hard to change, in that unless a public flogging has been undertaken, nothing was done about it. And so changing the perceptions of young people to understand that yes, your bullying concerns are taken seriously. This is the process. Here is our anti-bullying policy that children helped write and parents have made available to them and were consulted on. I think it's the he once called me a name, he always calls me names. It's walking that line of, you know, which are well-founded and evidence bullying incidents and which are we have dealt with that. You won't be privileged to the outcome because that's confidential between the child and their parents. And so I think what is important is that we take in tandem how well the parents feel the school deals with bullying now. And certainly I think I can speak for most of them when they would say that much better, I think, would be their answer. Thank you.
Joe.
Thanks. I wasn't going to come in, but I kind of, just as we were going through the report, I probably felt I should, because what's come across very strongly is that this is a school on a journey towards improvement that has actually got a very good start under a new team. And the point was just highlighted. That's the point I was going to highlight myself, that the inspection team have singled out the effective leadership that we're seeing from the head teacher, but also from senior leaders, that they're prioritising those relationships that actually is a way of actually preventing some of those bullying sort of complaints from escalating, and that we're making progress when it comes to sort of literacy and numeracy and what you would expect a school to be measured on. So I actually, I think it's a really positive report, and you've explained very well, you've preempted another one of my questions, explaining very well the challenges in leading a school community in what is a small rural school. With my questions preempted, really all I want to say is well done, and it has come across, I think, really strongly today, the kind of commitment from the school leadership team. I suppose if there's a question from me, it's maybe more for the council. It's just, and from our education resources centrally, in a larger school, I can see that there's probably a lot of peer support and experience to draw on when it comes to inspections. I'm just wondering how it was mentioned earlier, but I'm just wondering if you can say a little bit more about how we provide that peer support when it comes to these small rural schools with much smaller school roles, and therefore a smaller team from which to draw on for experience and some of that peer support.
Thanks, Councillor. The CQIS and the School Improvement Team, I'm part of the primary team, where we work in primary and there's a secondary team as well. So our primary team go out in force, if you like, when a school has notification of inspection, and in particular, myself as Quality Link Officer, but as Louise mentioned in her report, along with Anne Jessimer and Martina Hendry, so the three of us would go out and support that school. Through writing and gathering their evidence and writing their what they call the summary, their CESS paper, to go into Education Scotland prior to the visit. So we do a lot of that, but there's a general as well. There's a general meeting for all schools who maybe are on the kind of trajectory for inspection over the next year. So there's a general one, and then there's a very focused one once the school gets notification of that. But I would also like to say that in Straven, with the three small schools that I work with, they work very closely together. So they share that experiences of small teaching in small multi-composite schools. And we use that kind of, Louise will be a great help to her colleagues in that small school situation, in which she was actually when Kirkfield Bank and New Lanark were inspected just a couple of months ago. So there is a genuine kind of team that would help, as well as the head teachers having peer support. Thank you, Councillor.
Anybody else?
Sorry, just to follow up on Linda's point and round that out about from personal experience, I wouldn't have made it through without having had no knowledge of the inspection process at all. I wouldn't have managed without the support of my small school colleagues. And what is so crucial for our rural schools across South Lanarkshire, I know that obviously Clydesdale and bigger learning communities have far more. Sanford and Gilmerson is the only one in the East Kilbride area. They are becoming quite sizable, is what I would say, in the combined role of over 100 now. I wouldn't have succeeded as I did without guidance from the head teacher at Straven Academy, Wahida Huck, who was a real positive influence and kept me very grounded through the whole process. And I think it's crucially important that our small schools are always looking outwards. I've spent a lot of time making sure that the two staff teams across my schools come together as often as possible, not only because that saves me writing two completely different school improvement plans, there is a likelihood that our improvement agenda is similar, and then the nuance comes in each establishment, but the looking to our colleagues within our own partnership and then across Chapelton and Glassford primaries really helped. And I will do the same in return for when their time comes. If I had to comment on one aspect, which was a real pull, a real tension at the time, was that my other school was left quite isolated. Now, that's not to say they didn't manage. They are a fantastic team, but when there are 3 classes and 65 children there, when I can be a spare pair of hands, that often is quite useful, particularly when we look at it in the round with the resources we were talking about earlier on. I think that just a cognizance of the other school being left for a period of 3 weeks when the head teacher has to turn their attention fully to the school that's preparing for inspection is is a lot, and I'm very grateful to the school team who continued to perform well in my absence, and to the school team that had to have me go in there every day when they normally only see me 2.5 days a week.
Okay, are we finished? Yep. Okay. Right, thank you very much. I'll move the report for noting and ask for a seconder. Okay, I can ask members if they agree to note the report. Thank you very much. I'll let you escape now.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
all right.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll give you a few minutes.
Thank you. Just the camera was.
Okay, right, but here we have Nicola McNaughton and Douglas Hashigan. Right. For Routes to Work South. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. For everyone here, my name is Nicola McNaughton. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of Routes to Work South, and I'm really grateful to be with you today to provide an overview of the organisation and the lasting impact that we continue to make to South Lanarkshire's communities. Routes to Work South is a registered charity and arm's length organisation of South Lanarkshire Council, and I'm joined by my colleague Douglas Hashigan today. We have been successfully delivering employability services to the residents of South Lanarkshire for almost 20 years and are committed to alleviating poverty through the achievement of the key objectives highlighted within the presentation. We support the communities of East Kilbride from our East Kilbride Work and Training Centre, which is located within East Kilbride Shopping Centre, and that was set up in conjunction with the East Kilbride Task Force a number of years ago. Some of you will be familiar with that. As an organisation, we have a clear vision and mission for the company, which is achieved through the delivery of inclusive person-centred services, ensuring that no one is left behind. As a registered charity, our status brings with it many benefits to South Lanarkshire Council, and as you can see from the slide that we're now looking at, we have over the last 10 years generated over £30 million for the local economy. I've included some key statistics within that, and I would firstly point you to the one in the top right hand corner. As each year we provide savings of over £500,000 to South Lanarkshire Council. This includes Routes to Work South leasing the CTEC building from the council. As a registered charity, we benefit from rates relief, and the current rateable value of that property is circa £300,000, which would otherwise be payable by South Lanarkshire Council on an annual basis, notwithstanding the running costs of operating such a large facility. Within the middle, we've highlighted over £9 million has been secured in new and additional funding over the last 10 years, benefiting local residents. This funding is primarily secured through numerous different organisations such as Job Centre Plus, Skills Development Scotland, Scottish Government and Big Lottery. These are funds that would otherwise not be available to local authorities, therefore it comes as a significant benefit to your residents. Routes to Work South has been making a difference to local people since its inception in 2005, and in the last 10 years alone we've provided support to over 19,000 South Lanarkshire residents. Most impressively is the statistic in the bottom right hand corner, which states 3 job starts achieved every day. This highlights the impact that Routes to Work South continues to make and the lives we are continuing to change on a daily basis. Routes to Work South's delivery of services is an integral part of South Lanarkshire Council's local employability partnership, South Lanarkshire Works, and I'm now going to pass you over to my colleague Douglas Hashigan, who will provide an overview.
Thanks, Nicola, and thanks, Chair. As Nicola said, I'm Douglas Hashigan. I'm the Council's Employability Manager. Members may be aware that over the past couple of years there's been a review of employability within South Lanarkshire, so essentially the old youth employability team in education, which I previously managed, and the corporate finance and corporate employability team came together last financial year and moved to community and enterprise. So part of my responsibility is to deliver a number of services in-house, and also the kind of link support and kind of monitoring role for Routes to Work South, as well as being a board member myself. We've done quite a lot of restructure and review over the past couple of years just to make sure that the kind of services delivered by Routes to Work South and within the council, which are all, I should say, funded primarily by external funding from Scottish Government and UK Government, are complementing each other and kind of managed in a joined up way. We've done a lot of work through the South Lanarkshire Local Employability Partnership, which includes ourselves and Nicola and Routes to Work South, DWP, Skills Development Scotland, South Lanarkshire College and Vaslan, to develop a priority list of key priority groups that we work with through our key worker services, and as Nicola's touched on, a number of the services delivered by Routes to Work South. The priority groups that are set out in the plan are young people the last 6 months of school, which we have our Aspire service, which members may be aware of, young people aged 16 to 19 through Aspire Works, the adults that are supported by Routes to Work South through the Gateway and Gateway Intensive programmes, young people and adults with learning disabilities that we manage in-house, and parental employability support, which is a blend of programmes through ourselves and Routes to Work South. Members may be aware that as part of that ongoing review and improvement across employability, we're currently undertaking a review of Routes to Work South, along with other number of services, which is due to report back in the new year. So there'll be further discussion in the future. Just moving on for myself, one of the things that we've been doing over the past year is really kind of separating that key worker role, which Nicola talks about, that kind of flexible approach for individuals, along with a range of learning, training and skills development provision, which in some cases is delivered by Routes to Work South and is often also procured by and delivered by other third sector or partner organisations. And I think we've been successful over the past year or two in just making sure that provision is really tailored to the needs of the people on our key worker caseloads. And I'll hand back over to Nicola for the rest of the slides. Thanks.
Thanks, Douglas. I am aware that the presentation was circulated this morning in advance of today's meeting. I have included a link to a short video, and if you've not had the opportunity to view it, I would encourage members to do so. The video highlights our Cook and Learn initiative, which is a new approach providing local people with positive pathways and access to all of their services that are available through the local employer partnership, South Lanarkshire Works. Cook and Learn comprises 3 distinct elements. It provides a community cafe, providing employment opportunities for local people, a bespoke training programme, and there is also a pantry aspect to it. And like I say, if you've not already done so, please go on, have a look at it, and equally pop along to CTEC to see the facility firsthand. Routes to Work South services, as Douglas has touched on, form part of the employability pipeline. We provide support across all 5 stages of the pipeline, and that's through initial engagement, through to skills and training, and through to sustained employment. It's simply not enough to move someone into employment. If we really want to make an impact and change their lives, it's about supporting them as well once they're in employment to sustain employment. Our adult services are aimed at supporting those residents furthest removed, aged 18 plus, with barriers to employment. And as you can see from the presentation, we have included a note of some of the barriers that people do tend to present with. Our youth service delivery complements South Lanarkshire's delivery of Aspire Works and other associated services and combines one-to-one support with group training whilst also providing participants with access to a dedicated youth hub. What's most important is all of the services delivered by Routes to Work South contribute to the achievement of South Lanarkshire Council strategic plans, including things such as improving school leaver destinations, increasing employment opportunities, and most importantly, supporting economic development and growth. The future of employability, this is a really important point. The employability landscape has changed considerably in recent years, and as an organisation we continue to adapt our service delivery, ensuring we continue to meet the needs of local people moving forward. You will note that I've highlighted a number of points within the slide. However, I'm only going to focus on the first two for the purposes of today's presentation, and that is there is an increased need for pathways into work that are not just about employment. Cook and Learn is a really good example of this. So we look to engage with local residents, we look to confidence build rapport, we look to effectively support them to take the initial stages of their journey towards work before introducing that as a core component of our delivery. Creating new and additional services. As a charity, we look to reinvest any of our surpluses to support, obviously, South Lanarkshire's communities, and with the approval of our board this year, we have created the WIN project, What I Need in Life. That project specifically is being piloted in 2 areas at the moment, and it is aimed at supporting those who are economically inactive. This is a significant challenge at the moment in terms of the increasing numbers of economic inactivities. And what we are looking to do is, at a community level, provide early stage interventions focused on health and wellbeing, personal development, and supporting them to set longer term goals and aspirations. I have brought with me today, and these will be shared out through the chair, but I've brought with me today a copy of our recently published annual impact report for 23-24, which highlights the positive impact we continue to make to the communities of South Lanarkshire. We would, as an organisation, welcome the opportunity for members to witness firsthand the fantastic work that we do in Routes to Work South, and would be happy to facilitate or host any visits at any of the 4 of our employability hubs across South Lanarkshire. I will now hand you back to the chair, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks very much. Any questions? John? Or Dave? No, David. David.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. Very informative, but there's some things missing for me in it, and hopefully you can maybe answer it, or we can pick up in it elsewhere. Making a difference in the last 10 years, 7,600 plus people gaining employment. What does that mean? What kind of employment? Is it short-term employment, long-term employment? Do we keep tracking that? Is it part-time working, full-time working? Have you got any data to do that? And do you keep track on people that have gone through the scheme and see how long they actually continue on that employment journey? Thanks very much. Cheers.
Thank you for your question. In terms of the employment opportunities, it will be a mixture of what you would traditionally class as full-time and part-time. For the purposes of our funders, we cannot report a job outcome unless it's 16 hours plus. So that would effectively mean that people would be transitioning from benefits into some form of employment. Yes, the 7,600 people that have been supported into employment over the last 10 years have been across various industry sectors. We don't just simply focus on one. You know, we've been heavily involved with construction employers, HGV and logistics, services. We look at where the skill sets are of the individual. We also look at what is the demand and needs. And we respond to that, hence the reason why we will consider all available sectors. In terms of the moving the individuals into work, we are required as part of the funding that we receive, whether it's through South Lanarkshire Council, through Scottish Government directly, that there is a sustainment period for which we report. Previously, that generally focused on a 26-week period, so a 6-month period after the participant has moved into work, that we will continue to track that for. In recent years, that has increased to 52 weeks. So even once they've moved into work, we will continue to track and engage those individuals and provide support where needed for up to the 52 weeks to help them sustain.
Anybody else? John.
Thanks, Chair. I previously said I sit in the board, but I'm just wondering, has the board had the chance to work out the damage caused by Labour's increase to national insurance will be? Will it mean fewer staff or less money being spent on direct services in the area, or will it be a combination of both?
Right now, Councillor, we estimate that the cost of the increased NI will be approximately the equivalent of one post within the organisation. Therefore, in order to absorb that without any form of increased funding, we would need to cut our cloth accordingly. So the point you make is really relevant, because what we would then need to do is reduce the investment. And as you can see from the Making a Difference slide that was presented over the last 10 years, we have invested over 5 million people. £5 million, in local people through training and different interventions. So that would reduce so that we could offset that against increased operating costs.
Jerry.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for the presentation, Nicola. Just want to ask you, how many staff do you employ in your organisation?
Right now, we currently have a staff team of 61, although some of them are part-time. Yes, although some are part-time employees.
Thanks very much.
Anybody else? Oh, Joe.
Thanks. I thought I should, given I've recently had cause to see sort of first-hand some of the successes of Routes to Work South, but also with the partnership working that takes place with a whole range of organisations. Really just put on record my own appreciation for the work that they do. And I think what strikes me is that in that 10-year period since the service or the body was established, actually some of those employment challenges, the nature of them has changed. And I think back to the task force, for example, setting up that facility in East Kilbride, a very still got lots of economic challenges that we face, but of a different nature. For example, if I think back to 10 years ago, we were looking at very high levels of youth unemployment. Since then, we've seen maybe employment return, but not necessarily the kind of employment that we think is going to be the most sustainable or the most productive. So I'm curious, I suppose, about how flexible you can be when the nature of the employment challenges kind of changes. And also, just in relation to the point that was raised, I wouldn't expect anyone to comment on our officials on matters of politics. So I won't, but just for clarity, at COSLA we did agree on a cross-party basis that we would expect the Scottish and UK governments to be cooperating on that issue to make sure that any support that is received to assist with those national insurance costs is passed down fairly to local government, because it would be unacceptable for us to have to make those costs out of our own budget. And of course, lots of our services have suffered for many years as a result of direct underfunding by the SNP government.
Elise.
You coming in?
Aye, thanks very much. Just following from the point, Councillor, around that kind of flexibility in the change in labour market, I think Routes Towards South services and the services that we deliver within the council are really based on a kind of bespoke key worker model. So in previous years, there was often funding from either from UK government or Scottish government was quite distinct in terms of the people it was identified to deal with, or the kind of sectors. We've got quite a lot of flexibility locally now, that and not just in terms of programme design, but in terms of that individual approach that a key worker can, either Routes Towards South member staff or one of our own teams can work with, whether a young person or a parent, to make sure that the kind of individual plan that's put in place is the right one for them, which means that hopefully we can respond to change in labour market demand. So if there's a particular need in the care sector, for example, that we can kind of gather around that as a partnership and kind of fill that demand, as well as dealing with things like additional support needs. Similar challenges that were talked about by colleagues from the school earlier on is something that we see regularly through the kind of work that we do. So hopefully the flexibility is really key to that.
Elise.
Very much, Chair. Actually, I was just going to ask a question, but it was mentioned there a second ago. But what my concern is, or a suggestion, or maybe it's probably not both, but is, have we ever thought, obviously our social work for South Lanarkshire Council has struggled for many years, and at every committee we know that we've got an underspend because we're struggling to employ. What about bringing workshops into the route to work to make the working for care more fashionable, and maybe people understand it more and everything else? Have we looked into that so that people actually know what is involved in it, and to maybe and how they can improve themselves, and it's a stepping stone to maybe move themselves up in the care sector? Is that something we've looked for? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. As part of our delivery of training services, not only do we offer bespoke customised training, we also offer things such as sector routeways, whereby we look at industry sectors such as care and others. We comprise certificated elements of it that they would perhaps need to work in care, and also the whole point of it is, as you've suggested, is to give them an understanding of what's involved day to day. Not only does that enable the participants to gain valuable qualifications, but it helps them to fully understand, because I think that obviously you're absolutely right, there is a demand for care, but sometimes people often underestimate what's involved in it. So we run them not just for care, we look at things such as HGV, hospitality, construction, and they're a fundamental part of our annual delivery of services.
Okay, I think that's us. Nobody else. Okay. Right, very interesting. Thank you very much. We'll let you escape. We're going to have a 5-minute eye break for the grants, whatever you call them, BSL. 5 minutes. Ian, you have the floor.
First, switch your microphone on.
Thank you. Afternoon, committee. Yeah, so the purpose of the report is in connection with the 60th anniversary of the twinning of East Kilbride in Ballarat. As members will be aware, East Kilbride celebrates 60th anniversary of this twinning next year. It's the oldest twinning arrangement the council has, and members and the East Kilbride Twinning Association have worked hard to keep close ties with Ballarat and its communities over the years. At the end of August, the Mayor of Ballarat wrote to the Province and Councillor Fagan to invite up to 4 members to attend the 60th anniversary celebrations taking place in August in Ballarat next year. The East Kilbride Twinning Association is itself hosting visitors from Ballarat for its own celebrations of the twinning at the end of May in East Kilbride next year. It's proposed that the Council should continue to support the twinning arrangements and the 60th anniversary celebrations in 2025, and proposed that Councillor Fagan, as leader, accept the invitation from the Mayor to attend the event in Ballarat, together with the Provost and Councillor Watson as East Kilbride elected member. They will be accompanied by the Council's civic officers. Those 3 members have all agreed to personally meet the cost of the travel to and from Denmark. The Council will meet the travel costs of the civic officer. The invitation also extends to a 4th elected member if one would wish to attend. And it's also proposed that the Council would support the reciprocal celebrations taking place in East Kilbride next year, including the hosting of up to 4 representatives from Ballarat, associated accommodation costs, and holding a civic receptions. And we would work with the Twinning Association to ensure a suitable programme of events and activities. So the recommendations is that the committee note the planned attendance of the Provost, Councillor Fagan, Councillor Watson, Civic Officer at the event in Ballarat next year. Note the invitation extends to 4 elected members should another wish to attend, and note the support the Council will provide to the reciprocal celebrations taking place in East Kilbride next year. Happy to take any questions.
Sorry, try again. Can I move the report and ask for a seconder? Fine, thank you. I ask members if they agree to note the report. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to our community grants. If I can deal them individually, because I've got to declare an interest in them. So the first one is Duncan Rig Rambling Club. You all quite happy with that? Have you all had a look at it? Agreed? Agreed. Okay. I'll vacate the chair then out.
In the absence of chair or a deputy chair, are members happy if I just invite if somebody is happy to move the recommendation in the report at B?
Yeah, I'm happy to move it.
I'll second it.
Agreed.
The Stephen John Hastie Museum, I'll move that.
Well, I think we can bring them back in.
Oh, sorry, so we can. Right.
Okay, the Stephen John Hastie Museum. Would anybody like to comment? Quite happy with it in front of me? Thank you very much. Right. I don't have any other business other than to remind you that there's a meeting here at 4 o'clock. Okay, thank you very much for attending.